Hi guys, welcome back. It's UK here with part 13 of my Pathfinder campaign, the Doom of Yanderhof part 2. Yeah, this was quite an interesting session. Basically, where we left the cut party last, they had just entered the first level of the Goldthane mining settlement. A dwarven, basically, I think I wanted to call it like a satellite community. You know, it's linked to the dwarven city of Yanderhof, but it's technically its own little, splinter group. Yes, they were in the part way of clearing out through the first level, finding their way through orcses and so forth. And pretty much the first thing they ran into was a small makeshift prison in this session. Two young people, a young man and a young woman in their 20s, who, from the way they reacted to the bright light of their torches and their presence, thought they were orcses and had obviously been up deep underground for some time. It took them a little while, but they eventually managed, through the use of Bruce's giant eidolon form, to pull the bars apart enough that these two people can get out. And basically, they think they've been there about a month. The orcs had raided out of the mountains and basically snatched them up whilst attacking farmsteads. And brought them back. They don't know why. And pretty much, speaking to them, all they know is that there's orcs on this level. The orcs serve something big and gribbly deep underground, and that's about it. They just want to go home. So the party decide that their sorcerer Kendo, whose player hasn't been around for a while, he's been rather unwell, should take them back to Yanderhof. And they do. So he takes them away, and the character disappears out of the game for a while. They basically say that they'll use an arcane mark or wizard's mark, what I can't remember what it's called. All he's got to do is look for things like that, and they'll be able to follow the path that they've taken. So that character disappears for a while, and pretty much they find the way down. But they hear some orcs through one door from here, and they hear, or rather, they see a big pile of dead orcs, skeletal bones, in front of another door, around the stairs to the next level. And they decide they're going to deal with the orcs first. It's only a small encounter, a couple of orcs and an orc adept, essentially being a cleric wannabe. And it doesn't take much. These are all just orcs, and they get spudded. They find a little bit of treasure. Then we have the interesting bit. They decide to check this other door, and although they don't have a rogue with them, the party cleric Haji is able to find that there is a trap in this door. Attempting to open the door, there's this huge complex alchemist fire trap that's set to spray anyone in front of the door in burning chemicals. It's like, okay, that's what killed the orcs then. And Bruce, who's walking around still inside his giant eidolon exoskeleton form, decides that because he's got a 10-foot reach with his tail, he's going to open the door. Unfortunately, he's still just within the blast of this alchemist fire, and his eidolon takes a fair whack of damage from this. Which he has to transfer to himself in order to stop it getting too badly hurt. And unfortunately, they just find that someone's already actually got in here, because whatever was in this small room beyond the door has been emptied already. Although they don't know whether the orcs did it or the dwarves did it or what. Descending the stairs, they find a huge cave complex. A couple of dead dwarves who have been killed presumably by orcs. One of them is basically laying dead on some stairs, another is in an alcove a little way away, and he has managed to scratch the letters D-R-A in the Northern alphabet into the wall as his like dying act. And now they're thinking dragon, and that's kind of cool because, well, as they'll find later on, they are correct. Making their way through this, they run into some troglodytes. Kendo does an incredibly awesome diplomacy check to sort of like talk them down, and they find that they're guarding a set of doors which lead to the outside. That they serve their dark master deep under the ground, and basically they let the troglodytes go, which I was not expecting, but hey. Outside leads out to the mountainside. They can see Andhoff from a distance, they can see the farms and the fields and everything a bit further on. And so they seal the door and head back in. Somehow the troglodytes seem to have captured a bear, which Grill attempts to calm down. It's obviously being it's chained up and it's obviously being thrown prisoners and stuff. There's a couple of dead orcs in here. Sorry, dead dwarves that were in there. Sorry. And he's unable to tame the beast. He's unable to calm it down, so they decide to leave it put. Further exploration leads to a big fungus cave, where they find a big iron door, which they seem unable to open. Haji notices movement in the fungus forest, a large green tail dragging on the ground, sliding out of sight. So Grill summons up a dire rat and sends it off to investigate, and they hear like a squeak and a crunch, leap into combat, and they find two Grick, one of which is in the process of devouring the summoned rat, and the other trying to slither up quietly to the party. One is easily dispatched, the other one actually does manage to land a few hits on the cleric before Bruce's Eidolon basically leaps on it, hits with all his attacks and squishes it. And because he put himself into a flanking position, I basically decided that he did this big squeeze, crush, and all this half-digested rat and yellow ichor just flies out and coats the rest of the party, which was quite an amusing image, I think. They find some dwarven tombs, which they, reading through the names and stuff, they try to work out whether this is somehow a clue to opening the big iron door. Eventually they give up on that, and I keep wanting to say Kendo because in my head, Haji uses a stone-shaped spell to basically make a hole around the side of the door so they can get past, and find a set of stairs down. Still no sign of Kendo though, although there was going to be a couple of hours between him leaving and coming back. They descend some way into the darkness, eventually finding a small room with two doors, octagonal room, two doors, three large dwarf statues wielding, two of them have got axes and shields, the other's got two big axes. Bruce works out that the arms with the weapons are slightly loose, they're not a fully integrated part of the statue, but he is unable, even with his strength, to move them. They detect some kind of magical effect beyond the east door, which, with his knowledge of magic, Bruce identifies as a magic mouth spell. And from some way there, they can also hear the sound of hammering. So they then do the clever thing of opening one of the doors, and the two statues either side basically swing these axes down. They don't hit anything. Empty room beyond, nothing. They do likewise to the other. Bruce is basically volunteering to open this one because he's like expecting it, and he's got a better armor class, and one of them still manages to hit him with a critical blow, which could have been incredibly nasty, but the dice laid him off quite lightly, I thought. And that's when they decide to have a proper look around the room and find the secret door behind the statue. And they find, through there, the main centre of the dwarven complex, except there are a band of raiding Durgar, dark dwarves, who, when they realise that none of the party are in fact dwarves, are reasonably friendly, and are willing to, they don't want to fight, none of them dwarves, they've got a quarrel with them. They say they've pretty much looted everything here, and they are aware that there is a dragon on the lower level, and they can tell the group how to get there. But they basically want to go up the way that the party had just come from, because they want to raid further into the dwarf mines, not aware that there's pretty much nothing up there. So they let them go. However, the party decided this particular time they want to go back. They've expended a lot of their spells. So they return the way they came and return to Yanderhof, where they find Kendo, who is waiting. He's basically handed these two young people back to their families, and as a reward they have given them some cure-like wound potions. And he'd stay put, because he figured the party was going to come back sooner or later anyway. They rest up, they contemplate getting a Dragonbane weapon built, but it's going to take just over a week, so it's not worth the effort. So they basically load themselves up on some scrolls and potions to help them try and beat the dragon fear, and well, they figure it's in a cave. It can't exactly fly anywhere, so they've pretty much got it on the ground. They don't have to worry about things like that. So they just need to keep it in place, and then they can just hack away at it. So there's, you know, web scrolls and potions of owl's wisdom and so forth to help try and beat, help them beat the dragon. So next day, after resting and healing up, they go back down. No sign of the Duergar. They've obviously found there's nothing up here. They've gone. So they return to the dwarf halls and have a look around. There are some undead down here, unfortunately. Kendo suffers horribly at the hands of a wight. He loses gains a couple of negative levels before the party are able to defeat it. And pretty much the next room along, he is assaulted by an Alip, which basically just forces him into a fascinated stupor, and then just spends 4 rounds plugging its fingers into his head and draining his wisdom. And he lost 7 or 8 points on that, pretty much half what he had, making it harder and harder for him to resist it, until the party finally defeat it. The rest of the rooms have been looted. It seems they find a number of orc and dwarf bodies that have been left since the initial attack, and then they find a library, and there is a young woman in this library, a young human woman, who's been, explains that she's a sorcerer of some minor talent. She's been able to keep the orcs at bay. She's got some rations, but basically she doesn't know her way out. She didn't know what to do. She figured help would come. Are they going to help us? I think they don't quite trust her, and unfortunately their sense motives, they failed by 1. So, you know, they were able to get a sense that she wasn't being entirely honest, and they get her to finally admit that she'd actually been hired as a concubine for the dwarf lord that ran this particular place, and quite frankly she needed the money. Now, however, she just wants to go home. There's a little bit of discussion, and they agree to have Kendo take her back. Kendo's condition is not worth it in the fight against the dragon, so they take her back. And at this particular point, I did sort of break from the game a little bit, and I did explain that unfortunately Kendo will not be coming back, as they have just released a succubus from its prison, and Kendo is loved up one side and down the other on the way home. Thankfully, they've taken a couple of the magic wands he had off of him before they left. Unfortunately, Kendo's character was slain off screen, unfortunately. There you go. It's a habit with this particular group. We've got another player who is not playing in my game at present, and at least 3 occasions I have got him with a succubus, which he's kind of like a magnet for them. It's ridiculous. So it was a shame about poor Kendo, but the group had a little bit of a laugh at that particular situation. And pretty much from that, they've carried on searching a few more rooms before we decided to call it quits for the evening. So next session, they'll probably finish off this level and then descend into the lower level and confront the dragon. Which should be an interesting encounter, I hope. So that's pretty much where they're up to in the campaign so far. It was a really good session. We had an awful lot of combat, to be fair, but there was some nice RP, especially interrogating this poor woman / succubus and talking to the 2 prisoners that they rescued. So yeah, really good session, really enjoyed it. Anyway, thanks for watching. Until next time, take care. Good gaming.